Hey, we have Mark the Caddy here joining us from Wisconsin, Caddy at Whistling Straits. I'm Eric, the founder and lead architect at Shot Pattern. Mark, thanks so much for joining us. Excited to talk to you about all things Whistling Straits, about your experience as a caddy, and try to help people make the most of their visit to the Straits course and other courses on the resort. So as we get started here, tell us, how long have you been caddying at Whistling Straits and how'd you get into it?
All right, so this is my fifth season at Whistling Straits. We decided a number of 4 years ago now, in May of 2019, to move to Wisconsin. My wife grew up on a farm about a mile and a half from the course,
Okay.
and we were transitioning for many reasons, including some big life issues on my part. And I write about those, by the way, in a book coming out in April called Caddy Tales. So any of you who are watching this, look for that on my Twitter feed. But I get a little more in detail there. But we wanted to end up getting back near all that family, and I kind of stumbled upon Whistling Straits, planned on it being a one summer kind of transition gig as we moved here, and just fell in love with it, fell in love with the course, the people, the life. And so I've kept going ever since. And so it's a real amazing thing to have this golf mecca near these dairy farms where my wife grew up and thought she was in the middle of nowhere. Now it's a pretty big place in the golf world.
Absolutely. And you share some awesome stories, little tidbits of your time on the course with people, and I can't wait to read the book when it comes out. So one thing we wanted to talk to you about is how do we make the most of a visit to Whistling Straits? People
Yeah.
are going to pay pretty big money to travel out there and want to have a fantastic, memorable experience. So what are your like top three things you recommend to make
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Let the hospitality crew, plan the details as far as where you stay. Most players stay at the American Club Resort or the Inn at Wood Lake, which are Kohler properties, and great amenities there, great restaurants as a part of the Kohler facilities. So make use of those. But as far as coming to the course, number one, and this is by far, absolutely by far the number one thing that I think players have to come with is real realistic expectations. I see unrealistic expectations or just big expectations ruin many a day, or at least make it less than it should be. It's just a different course. It's really hard. The conditions are tough. A lot of times players have little sleep and they're away from their surroundings. It's rare that someone comes and just posts the low score they've been dreaming about. And that doesn't mean we're not going to try, but having some realistic expectations, number one. I think playing the correct tee box, which we're going to get into a
Yeah.
little bit here more. That's a huge thing because it's the yardage, for instance, it just doesn't play the same as most people's home club. And so my experience is a lot of people play one back further than they probably should. That's not always the case, but it's often the case. And then, lastly, and this might sound a little bit odd, but just be careful about if you're going to play a match. Yeah, and why I say that is, if losing a match is going to kind of ruin the day, I just kind of say it's maybe better to just soak in where you're at. It's a special place. Odds are you're pretty blessed and privileged to be able to be there. And so I say let the main thing be the main thing, and maybe save the match for back home on a place you're more familiar with, and just appreciate the real joy of being out there.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. I love that so much. Yeah, having been lucky enough to go a little more than 10 years ago, yeah, I totally agree. I did not play well, but just every hole standing on a tee box, looking back, standing on the green, looking at Lake Michigan, it is just a surreal experience. And the more you can soak it in, I just think the better it is. And if you play well, just view that as a bonus, I think.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into the golf. We're gonna do some fun things here with Caddy's perspective and shot pattern's perspective. So let me go ahead and share my iPad here. Um, so we have the shot pattern app that we're gonna pull up here on the iPad, and we're gonna go through it and use this so that people can see how they might use the Shot Pattern app to prepare for a visit to Whistling Straits. There's some awesome functionality here that I think will help give the caddies perspective. And just doing a little course preview for 15-30 minutes before people show up, I think can make them hopefully play even better before they arrive, and then really trust those lines that you're going to give them off the tee. So I'm going to jump into our course preview mode here, and I'll go ahead and type in the name of the course. We have pretty much every single course worldwide. We'll jump into the Straits course. And so here's our options off the tee. And I know the scorecard comes with a recommendation. And honestly, it seemed like the scorecard was pushing people a little bit further back than my senses to where they should be. So what's your perspective?
Yeah, you know, one of the things, and actually we just had a conversation about that at the starters table the other day with a group, is the scorecard focuses on a player's handicap. And, you know, that's a challenge in and of itself because the handicap may not travel that well, especially if someone's just playing their home course over and over and over and over again. That handicap may not travel to a place like Whistling Straits. But really, the key issue is how far does a player hit it consistently? And I stress that word consistently off the tee. Because, you know, there's some really, really low handicaps who may not hit the ball extremely far. And so, they need to be guided as to where might be the most appropriate tee box for them. So, you know, I think there's very few players, if any, that should be playing our black tees, the tips. In as much as guys joke about tipping it out, you know, the pros haven't even played that distance when they've been there for the PGA Championships or the Ryder Cup.
Now, do they
I
actually
think
put those markers out for people to play, or do you pretty much have to just go find the plate?
no, so like there is for the black tees, yeah,
Yeah.
no, there's markers out there, but they do have plaques on the tee boxes for where the pros have played from, and so you get kind of a view that oftentimes they're hitting from very close to where we are, you know, and so that kind of helps people be a little more realistic about where they might be playing from. Um, so you know, the blue tees are for, you know, people who I would say are consistently driving the ball over 280 yards and you know, are pretty straight with it. And so other than that, you know, our most popular tee box is the green tees, and then also the white tees. And I would say that you know, the people who play the white tees generally have a really enjoyable day. And the green tees is kind of a mix. You know, you got, that's the right place for some people, and then there's some others who still might even need to move up one.
Yeah, and even as a long hitter of the ball, that sometimes goes crooked, I think playing it a little bit on the short side is
Yeah.
going to be a better experience than playing it a little bit on the long side and really having to hit driver where other people are able to hit an iron. Yeah, I would.
Yeah, and you're more than likely to have like 8 or 9 holes each round directly into the wind. And you know, this week we had easily um you know, a 3 club wind the other day, and I was out there with a golf pro who this is a guy who's a pro at a club, and he played the green tees, and he was more than happy with that. And you know, he got to have the fun shot on our 13th hole where he was downwind, and he ended up driving the ball to the green because he caught it just right and caught the slope. But then he was at the right box for, like, when we turned around and we're on this long par 4 15th hole directly into a 25-30 mile an hour wind, where, you know, for most players it plays like a par 5. And so I think you got to take those conditions into account as well. And
Absolutely.
so and adjust, you know, like there's days where everybody should be moving up, because we've had club, I've been out there before where it's 130 yards away and players have been having to hit their 200-yard club. And pride will still, you know, disallow some guys from maybe moving up a little bit. So I think just kind of setting yourself up to have the most enjoyable day, have some approach shots that are real makeable instead of having 200 plus yards out on every second shot, and then you know, really just kind of enjoy the day more.
Awesome. So we're gonna jump in. I told you I averaged about 290 off the tee, but it goes sideways a bit. So I'm not gonna push it with the blue tees. I think I can have a great experience playing the greens. We're gonna jump into the shot pattern app here, and you're gonna give us a couple of holes where it can be hard to trust what you're seeing from the tee box. And I think the first one you wanted to talk about was the eighth hole.
Yeah.
So take us through what you might see standing on the tee.
Yeah.
And let me make sure. Yeah, I got about 429. So am I on the
Yeah.
right tee box here? Should I move up here to the back of this one being on the green tees?
Yeah. That's a good one right there. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So yeah, the eighth hole I would say is really one of our most underrated holes. It's the number 3 handicap on the course, so it's a hard hole, but it's not one that I hear players talk about a lot. And you see it goes, from the tee box. The green is right of the hole, and so as players look straight, though, a lot of times they can't see that they're at that corner where you have your line pointed right now. The fairway runs out. And so for a lot of guys who are hitting their driver, they need to be on a line that's left of where you've got it pointed, like right about there. You see some traps there on the left. We will, basically have people just come just right of those traps, and we'll say it 3, 4, 5 times, but to their eyes, it's not registering because you they can't really see from the tee box that over there on the right side of the fairway they're going to run out of real estate. And so more than any other tee shot on the course, except for maybe the 18th hole, where we'll talk about it in a little bit, it's the shot where players think they hit a beautiful drive, and the caddy knows that it's going to be too long. It's going to run through the fairway, and sometimes it catches the hill there just right, and it rolls all the way down to that beach you see down there by the lake. And so what they thought was going to be a great shot on this par 4 turns into a really long hole and a long slog of a walk. So this is one where you tell players very often, and it would certainly be the case for somebody like you, that if you're someone who can drive the ball 290 yards, you've got to be able to stay over on the left side, just right of those bunkers. And so then you can kind of run around that corner that you've got it pointed at right now. As a matter of fact, just the other day, I had a young guy playing with his dad, and they were playing the white tees because the son wanted to play with his dad. Eighth hole was downwind, and there was a pretty good wind that day, and the son could hit the ball pretty far if he got a hold of it. And so I told him, if you hit driver here, you've just got to be able to stay on that line. So he was trying to make a decision between what he wanted to do. At first, he grabbed something smaller, but I said, no, you've got quite a bit of distance there if you go ahead and hit your driver, just if you got to be on line. And he got it where he hit it where you're pointed now. It got around the corner, and he's got a real short second shot in. So that time it worked out. But I wanted to make sure he knew that if he hit driver and it happened to go right on him, more than likely he was going to end up down that hill. So if you got somebody who's spraying the ball, more than likely you're encouraging them to hit something shorter.
Yeah. Yeah. Try to, again, this is a tough fairway hit to hit. If I'm narrowing that in, it's not even 40 yards wide, and it winds,
Right.
and it's just hard to keep it in play here. And the memory's coming back now as you talk about this. I mean, through 7 holes, the course was beating me up. I'm spraying it all over. I don't even know if I saw a fairway to this point. And I may have done exactly what you just said. Thought I hit a good one down the right-hand side. Finally got a ball in play in my mind. And then it rolled down, and I'm hacking it out of the long grass and the beach for the rest of the hole when I thought, finally, here's a chance to hit a green in regulation. So
right.
trust the
Right.
caddy.
And so,
Trust
like,
the caddy.
a lot of times it just makes sense for somebody to hit like an iron or a hybrid. And that way, if the ball fades on them a little bit, there's a much more of a chance of staying in. And the challenge there is then they've got a long second shot, but that's better than being down by the beach.
Absolutely. And you say that iron versus hybrid conversation, and this is where we're going to do a little caddy versus algorithm challenge here. And I think this is a decision that we all run into, maybe once, maybe 5 times around, depending on the course that you're playing. Is like, is this hole a driver? is this hole an iron, and how do I really make sense of that decision? And at Shot Pattern, we built a tool that we're really excited about where it can predict your strokes gained based on your dispersion. And I'll show you how it works here in a second. But before I reveal the math that we're doing when you give us your dispersion data, Mark the Caddy, you're going to give us your line off the tee, and then we're going to go head to head, see if our mathematical approach matches your experience on the course. So walk us through this tee shot. The 18th hole, it's hard to see the 3-dimension elevation change here from our top-down view, but walk us through what a player is going to be looking at and the challenge of this tee shot.
Yeah. So this 18th hole, it's just one of the best holes you're ever going to play. One of the hardest par fours. I've seen less than 10 birdies on this hole in my 5-year career. But it's great. The challenge is that for some players, it takes they immediately go for their driver because it's a long hole, long par four. But we have to warn them right away, especially if it's downwind, especially if they're a long hitter, that the fairway there you're seeing that you're pointed at runs out. And from the green tees, it's about 250-ish yards until the fairway runs out. And in front of that, there's a ditch, a ravine, whatever you want to call it, that's wide. And if the ball goes a yard long, it's gone. And so off the tee box, we would say to guys, we're going to go less than driver here, and we're going to aim up the right center of the fairway. Now, if there's some guys who insist on hitting driver and have like the length that you would have, you do have the option to hitting it over here to the left. It's quite a long carry, as you can see over all of these bunkers, and has to be much more precise than if you take something shorter up the right. So my bias, my preference, unless a guy is absolutely insistent, is that you're going to hit the ball up the right center of the fairway and try to get as close as you can to the edge of the fairway without running through.
Cool.
So for you, I'd say hit your, 240 yard club.
Cool. And I like how that's matching up without even seeing my dispersion plotted on here. I love that visual. And because I just toggled this to being a 60-yard wide arc there out there. And 60-yard wide, that's probably a little tighter of a window than most amateurs can fit their driver in. I'm seeing my driver at about a 95-yard window. I'm a bit of a wild player as I hit it decently far. So this 60-yard window, like I reasonably hit that 80+% of the time with my hybrid, which I'm going to expect to be this shot. Whereas you said, if I have to try to squeeze my driver into this window, that's not even a 40-yard wide fairway, and I've got penalty strokes on both sides. That just seems like really poor course management and strategy. I imagine that this little sliver of fairway is mostly only here to help those higher handicaps have a place to go, so they don't have to hit that forced carry over this huge ravine. So let's see if our math matches up. I'm going to hit my dispersion button here and plot all those points. And it's spitting out actually positive strokes gained at first. And I think that's because, it's not treating this ravine as water quite yet. And knowing that it's the GPS can only do so much, we added in this drawing tool, which I love, and I especially love on iPad, where I can now go in and say, you know what, if you hit it down into that ravine, we should treat all of that as a penalty stroke hazard. And you can see, look at how that changed our strokes gain. We went from gaining strokes because we pounded the ball out there and got it close to the green to now we are losing 3/4 of a shot because 70% of my shots are down in that gulch, and only about 10-15% found the fairway if I hit driver off the tee. So if we lay back with that hybrid, and I've got to get more data in here, and this is a hard hole, like it's a forced layup for me, but my numbers are looking so much better here with hitting that hybrid that you suggested off the tee. And it looks like these couple are being treated in the rough, where maybe a couple of them should be in the fairway, and I could draw another marker out there. But looks like we're on the same page. Hybrid is definitely the play here. We can see that by hitting hybrid instead of driver, I'm going to gain 0.6 of a shot. Let's just see what happens if we do aim it over here. And I'm going to go ahead and draw in that this is water as well. And so, yeah, it's a little bit less penalizing if we aim this in the right place, but at the same time, we're losing 0.4 of a shot hitting driver, trying to fit it into that narrow gap, and doing much better if we lay back with a hybrid, probably picking up 0.3 strokes against scratch to make this smarter play. So hats off to you. Trust your caddy, certainly. And so,
well, and I would add the real benefit of an app like yours and for players would be, for a number of our players who aren't familiar with the course, this would eliminate like the shock and the look at us like we're idiots when we tell them, no, this really isn't driver hole, or you might want to think about it, because this is another one where you don't really see that there's trouble up there from the tee box. It just looks like this long shot that you can hit, and if you keep it up relatively straight, you're going to be good. And so this helps guys know and kind of again manage their expectations or simply know what to expect.
Yeah, and that's what we were hoping when we build it. We built it for the golf obsessed, the kind of people who are going to be traveling to these awesome resorts, who want the anticipation of playing the course and to really see it and understand it and soak it all in. So we're gonna give away a little promo code to everyone who watched the video today. We'll put it on the screen and in the editing after, but if they enter Mark the Caddy, all caps, no spaces, into the Shot Pattern app paywall where it says redeem offer code, we're going to give them $5 off for watching this. Hopefully they use it before their trip to Whistling Straits, and hopefully they request you. How are people finding you to say, hey, I want to have Mark caddy for me at Whistling Straits?
Yeah, I get some messages on Twitter. The nerve-wracking thing is always that I'm certainly not good. I'm nothing special, and there's plenty of good caddies there. But people I think can maybe build it up to be something that I may not fulfill. So again, right expectations. I'm just a guy who's there to help you have fun and get you around the course. But yeah, people can feel free to message me on Twitter. They also can just call into the course, and if they make a request, that'll get through.
Cool. Awesome. And when does the book come out?
It's going to come out at the end of October. I'm just waiting until the end of the season, and it'll make a great Christmas present, I hope, for some people. It tells a little bit of my story, some struggles I went through, how I stumbled into caddying, and how caddying has been integral to a healing process, but also how, like golf, there's some really good days, but then there are some setbacks, which I've had too during the last few years. But day by day, you kind of keep grinding, and no matter how much you shank it, there's always a next shot, I like to remind people. So hopefully people will be interested in that, and we'll pick it up on Amazon. Just look at my Twitter and you'll be able to follow, or I'll keep people updated for when that comes out.
All right, that's awesome. We'll certainly be ordering a copy or two. So thanks for the time, Mark. Love the conversation. Love how you're guiding us through having a great trip to the Straits course. And we look forward to talking to you more in the future.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.